All right.
It's recording. Cool. I guess I'll start with, hey, everybody. My name's Clint, and I've been on the Revolution Racing team for, gosh, a long time, like 9 years now, I guess, 8 or 9 years since we started. And at a cyclocross race, like, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 years ago, at Government Hill, this like dude rolled up next to me and I was like, who is this guy? Why is he going so fast? And it was our friend Chris here. And I'm really excited for him. He's doing the Iditarod Trail Invitational this year, which kudos to everybody, like to put on an event like that during our current times is a challenge. And it's been really cool to see that they took that challenge and they have made a really neat event for the 20th anniversary. So I'm really excited to chat with Chris and see, just get to know a little bit about him, and I hope you guys will too. So I'll hand it over to Chris here, and I guess there was a really neat story I had heard. You and Mara. Like you guys have been into this type of activity and these adventures for a long time, and it started with, from what I know, you guys rode your bikes through Canada to Alaska. Like tell me about that. What got you into bikes? What got you here? Like what brought you
here? Thanks, Clint. And thanks everyone. It's fun to be doing this. So a little bit about me, and a lot of my stories are tied to Mara, my wife, as well. We went to college together. We went to a little college in Michigan. And before then, in high school, I had been mountain bike racing with some buddies of mine. We started mountain bike racing kind of in the glory days of like John Tomac and Julie Furtado. And so, when I met Mara in college, she knew about that. We didn't have much time to ride while we were in school, but when we graduated, I got to get to know Mara's dad pretty well. And then by the time we graduated, he told us, he said, you guys shouldn't join the real world right away. Why don't you go on a big trip? Because he had gone on a big trip when he was done with school in the late 60s, which is another story for another day. So he encouraged us, and he with him, we started to plan a cycling trip from Michigan through Canada. And we were touring for 6 weeks, and we landed in Anchorage eventually. And then for the rest of that summer, I did a little more touring around the state. And then, so I've been biking since, and Mara's been kind of biking on and off since then as well. So we just have a long love of the sport and getting outdoors and adventure.
Yeah, I noticed. I think one thing that's really cool is, and it'll go into, I'll ask you some more stuff about this later. I think it's really cool, like seeing the adventures, like how your family has morphed into different types of adventures, because you definitely have a pretty cool like adventure past, I guess. Like you've done a lot of really neat things, things that I'm really excited to try one day myself. You've done this both the summer and the winter classic, or at least the
yeah, the winter classic only. Someday, maybe you and we can do the summer together.
And I think that's just really amazing. And so, but you've also done the ITI previously as well. Like tell me about that. Like how did that first one go? That was a while ago, right?
Yeah. So I'm 43, and I have 2 kids, Lucas and Jonathan, and Lucas is 10, Johnny's 7. Before I had kids, I did a lot of these winter endurance races or summer races, and especially the Wilderness Classic, the winter version. There was a period in my life where that was, the Wilderness Classic was very important to me. I got a lot out of it on a personal level. And so with that, I did trips where I skied across the Brooks Range, skied across the Wrangles, skied through, much of the remote regions in the state. It was outstanding. And then we had kids, and the kids took the priority. And so I kind of got out of the long trips and the endurance trips. But now that they're a little older, they're coming on trips with us. We've been doing a lot of like backpacking and cross-country skiing. And so, hopefully this is something that we can continue to enjoy as a family. Mara, I grew up just outside of Detroit in the suburbs, very urban and suburban. Mara grew up on a homestead in the interior. And like when I was growing up during spring break, spring break was like, we'd go up to northern Michigan and go hang out at a cabin or something. And when Mara was growing up for spring break, her dad would take her and her brother and they would go like climb Mount Sanford or, ski across the Wrangles. So when going back to that kind of first trip, that bike trip that brought us up here, her family took me in and I was into it. I really liked those big trips, but they showed me the road. I'm really grateful because I got to do a couple of wilderness classics with Mara's dad, and then with her brother. So it's just been part of the family, I'd say.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like I didn't know that about you. When it's like you got a whole family of like, oh yeah, it's just a Sunday trip.
So to get to your question about the first ITI, I'd been doing the Wilderness Classic for a number of years and a lot of trips to train for that. And on the Classic, there's no route. You're skiing and you're finding your way. And occasionally you'll pick up a snow machine trail. Often those trails are river bottoms and they're near villages. So I think it was like 2009. Fat bikes were pretty new. There was a Surly Pugsley. Greg Mattis came out with the Thai Fatback. And I bought one of those and loved it and did like the Sioux and then signed up for the ITI. And that year was a heavy snow year. So we were, there was a group of us riding towards Rainy Pass. Jeff Oatley was way in the lead by like half a day. And then there was maybe half a dozen of us, behind him. And then kind of everybody else. And the 5 or 6 of us behind Jeff, we got close to Rainy Pass and the trail disappeared. Like there was a snow machine stuck and then no trail. And this was when Bill Merchant was organizing the race and he got stuck and the Iditarod Trail Breakers hadn't come through yet. So there was nothing through Rainy Pass. There was this little cabin right before the pass that was halfway built. It was eventually, I think it became a 2-story cabin. I'll find out this year because I haven't been there since. But it was 1 story at the time with like ceiling joists and a partial roof. And Jeff holed up in there waiting for peep racers to catch up because he wanted a group to help him break trail. So we caught up to Jeff and then we caught up to him. We got there at night. The next morning, a group of us went out and we post-holed up to like our waist and our thighs for 48 hours all the way to Rome. Yeah. Yeah. And so it was, but those, it was challenging and it really pushed some of the people who were in this group post-holing, it really pushed them mentally, where they were kind of on the edge of it. And we bivvied out one night and there were some outstanding athletes that didn't really know how to bivvy, didn't know how to like set up their sleep setup and stuff like that. So that was kind of interesting to see. You can have some world-class athletes, but when you put them in a wilderness wilderness setting, it's just, it's not what they're used to. And it's a unique challenge for them. And I had kind of the opposite. I had a lot of the riding experience, right? But not so much the athletic ability. And then
we still see that though, right? Like we still see each participant, like some of them have a particular set of strengths. And then, I've always, like, even after doing this one event 5 times, like I still think about things that I can work on and do better. It's really neat to see kind of the varying levels of abilities, and it's fun because they really push you. Like if somebody's always strong in something, and like they can really push you, and then you get to return the favor to push them back sometimes. So it's really cool. I totally understand where you're coming from. That's cool.
Yeah, so that was that, and then Lucas was born in 2011, and so now I'm starting to get back into things. Yeah,
I remember we ran into each other on a ride, and you were explaining to me how you were like, oh, they're getting old enough now to where they can kind of self-manage themselves. So I was really excited for that, because I can see where both you and Mara seem to be, you have a little more time for yourselves to kind of go do the things you really like doing. That's really neat. I didn't know that about Mara. Like I was like, oh, like you guys do seem to move through kind of outdoor challenges pretty like you've done it many times, like it's pretty cool. It's fun to see that. It's really cool to see. I was thinking today also about like how neat, as a friend and a teammate, to like see. I don't have any children, but it's always neat to see like how any of your friends, whatever their situation is, like you see them kind of grow and develop, their families, or develop their own life. And so it's been kind of fun watching you guys, develop your family and continue having a good time. And it's really cool. It's really fun to watch. It's really, I'm excited to be a dot watcher this year. So I'm really excited for you guys. It's pretty cool.
Thanks.
So, yeah. And so I guess kind of another thing is, it sounds like this is always kind of a, like, it's a really wide ranging question, but it's like, what drove you, like what drives you to take on challenges like these? Because they encompass a large part of your life, right? Like right now, I'm like, oh, Chris is probably feeling really good. Like he hasn't had to ride as much. Like now you get to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. But there's a 3 to 5 month period beforehand where you spend a lot of time preparing and working really hard. So what drives you to want to do that? Like what do you? Yeah,
we should grab a couple beers. We might be here a while.
I do have 2 of them. Take your time.
It's changed, I'd say, for me. The motivation and the desire to be in the outdoors, especially for longer trips, has evolved. And right now, for where I am kind of in my life, it's there is that element of challenge of coming back, and what I guess what I mean is there's times when, especially in Alaska, I think the Mother Nature can just sock it to you, and you have to get through it. And it's up to you and the people you're with to work together and to just keep moving. Or sometimes you might need to hunker down or maybe fix something that's broken. But it's the solution is to try to get through it. And to me, that lesson has I really appreciate it. And it's something I kind of enjoy. I enjoy the reward at the end of of that. And also just, there's so many places that are just so beautiful, right? Clint, like seeing the Alaska range and, going through the rolling hills and the spruce forests. And I think I'm at my best and probably happiest when I'm outside. So I really enjoy that time.
For sure. Yeah. I still, although I'm taking the break this year, like I still, I always leave Pantella with just like, I know the weather's going to be rough and I know the conditions are going to be rough. Like you just know you're going to run into it at some point. But every time I go, that I go out into the valley floor there, I'm just blown away, almost literally sometimes, but it's so incredible. And I wish I was like a wordsmith and that I could explain it to everybody in a way that they could feel how I feel. It's such a, that's what drives me. And like, it's what's beyond the next bend? What does it look like this time? And even though I've seen it a few times now, I still feel a lot of excitement for it. And it's incredible. Like, so it's hard work to do it that way, the way that I do it, but it's very rewarding for me, for sure.
To hear you talk, Clint, another thing I really appreciate is Kyle Duran was talking about this a few days ago. Like, there's the ITI family, and I think the same is true for people who do the Sisseton 100 or other really challenging events. The people that do it, they really have this really strong connection, and it's really hard to put all these feelings into words. But when you talk to other racers who've been through it, you know exactly what they went through, and you know what they mean. And that bigger sense of family it's just wonderful. There are people I know who live in Fairbanks, for example, that were on that first ITI I did, and we're still, like, I don't talk to them for probably years at a time, but we consider each other good friends.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just because we shared that experience together.
Yeah, it's been really great. This past, like I was talking about the build up, this past week, I get texts from friends and, like, we're all kind of like, oh man, do you miss it? I kind of wish, it's weird not getting ready for the race. Like, I was getting those text messages from other people. And, so I imagine there'll be some veteran names back on the list again next year. Just because it's like it's just what we do, I guess. It's kind of a thing we really enjoy. So that's really cool that you guys you're back in that space where you can take these types of things on. That's pretty cool. So, like, and that works into another question is, and I think a lot of people, a lot of our friends, they have kids and families and normal everyday responsibilities like you do. I don't have that many responsibilities, but so what kind of things, like, do you have any like tips or tricks of the trade for like kind of balancing your situation, like balancing your, the day-to-day life responsibilities and taking on an event like this is it takes all of your free time and plus a little more, I think, at times. Like what kind of things have worked really well for you?
Well, yeah, good one. Well, going back to kids, especially when the boys were really young, like I used to say, like, having kids was good training for endurance racing, or vice versa. You learn how to prioritize your time. That's probably I think the best thing that I could recommend. You can't get everything done in a day. You'll never get there. But you got to pick the most important things and stick with it. And that, to me, like, that lesson was essential with little kids, because you just can never get all the stuff done that you want and take care of them. And so now that they're a little more self-reliant, we have a little bit of free time to train. And also I think training well when, 10 years or more ago, like when I would train for the Sisseton 100, I would just go and I would just like ski all day, or I would bike all day. And I didn't really know what I was doing. And it turns out I was getting a lot of hours in, but I wasn't developing my body the most efficient way.
Yeah.
So, sticking with the training program. It's something pretty new to me. I did it for the ITI, and it was amazing. Like it worked.
Yeah. I've been using kind of canned training plans now for the past 3 years, and it's there's like the gradual gain, but it's also my understanding of my body and how it works is much greater, and it's helped my racing, and it helps me feel more confident about, kind of like if you go into a section where there's bad weather and you're like, oh, I'm gonna be just trudging for the next 20 hours or whatever, like I'm confident that I can do it, and that I can do it quickly, for sure. Like there's so much. I feel like it's a never ending thing. Like we'll forever be working on our bodies. There's always something to kind of chip away at or make better or fix. Sometimes you're fixing things, recovering. So.
Yeah. Growing up, I remember like people in their 40s and 50s, they were old. Like my parents' friends used to have over the hill parties when somebody turned 40. And I think our culture has changed in a better way, where you can still learn new things and you can still have all kinds of adventures and stay strong and healthy, way into, your senior years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the best, the best competitors I've raced against are they're not younger than me. Well, like, most of them are actually a little older than me. And so I like, not taking anything away from anyone. Sorry, Tyson, not taking away anything. Like, it made me feel really good about my future. Cause I'm always like, one of my things, I'm always like, oh man, like I'm going to get old and, I'm just going to be a broken old man. And, I see some of the people that we ride and race bikes with, and then I'm like, no, I got a long time. Like I'm, if I just take care of myself and have a good time, like there's no reason I shouldn't feel really good for a long time. So, it'll catch up some point, but we got a long time. I agree with you. Like I'm super stoked about that. So, so there was the other, so this is kind of leading me into, I didn't give you this question because I wanted to catch you a little off guard on this one. So it leads us into the next one. So I think it's really cool. So this is like the 20th anniversary of this event, kind of as it's morphed its way. And it's morphed a few times. It's morphed even between the time you did it the first time and now. And this time it's morphed out of necessity. So like the route has changed. For the first time, we're seeing like a prescribed route that I can think of. Certainly since the merchants took the race over, it was like, this is the first time we've seen a prescribed return route. And so as I've been thinking as somebody who's going to be dot watching this year and hitting the refresh button at 3 a.m, 100 times, yelling at the screen going, why isn't Chris moving? He's sleeping, of course. What can we look like? What kind of things are going to be new and different about the actual event, the race, because of is any of that going to play into it? Are we going to see something different, or you know, what's that situation like?
Yeah. Well, there's also the categories. Like you can race traditionally and use the checkpoints in all their facilities and sleep in at lodges if you want, or right, you can bivvy. You can still get hot water and food, but you have to sleep outside, or you can be fully self-supported and not even go in the checkpoints. So that's really interesting, and I like that they have those options, and that people are getting recognition for for finishing in one of those categories. Right, every category is going to be tough, but that's pretty cool to give people some extra recognition.
Okay, and so which one are you going to partake in then?
I signed up to bivvy.
Okay, all right. I kind of figured that I was telling people, I was like, oh, you should just expect to sleep outside. Like I wasn't sure what to expect just as an outsider this time. So
yeah. It's you can protect yourself. I haven't had the COVID vaccine yet, and I don't want to get it. I don't want to get COVID, so I feel most comfortable sleeping out, and to me, it gives it just a bit of some of the checkpoints, as you know, Clint, like they can be hot and cramped and noisy. It's tough to get real sleep. And I also think, why not? I'm carrying the gear. I like sleeping outside.
I like that. That's a good point. It's like, I got to carry this stuff anyways. Why will we use it? I think every other time I take it, I never use any of my sleeping gear, but when you need it, you need it. So yeah. So for sure. Definitely. So there's definitely some checkpoints that get a little crowded. I can think like Roan, there's not a lot of room in Roan, like that wall tent. It can fill up really quick. And so I was kind of thinking, I was like, oh man, what are your thoughts about, you've crossed over the pass, and I've been over the pass when the conditions are faster, but I would never say that I feel like the conditions are good. It's never easy. Like going over the pass is rough. Like I was considering, for us, we have to go over the pass twice. The Iditarod, the dog mushers, they're going over it twice. And you've seen the dog teams out, like they're barely under control. Like they just go. That's all they know is go. And that's all we know sometimes too. What are your thoughts about that? Like going over Rainy Pass twice? Like listening to your story, I'm like, oh, it's been that difficult for me once. And I ended up following Neil Belchenko's tracks down into the drainage too soon. And we had to crawl out of it. And we were crawling out of it was like one of these, like you pick your bike up, like we were almost it was really steep, it was really deep. And I was trashed after that. I was so tired. I had to sleep. It was not a pleasant bivvy experience. Never is. But it's definitely, so what can we expect if you guys got to do that twice? And then I think it sounds like you don't, the race's plan is for you not to stop in Rainy Pass on the way back. What can we expect from there? Like what kind of entertainment are we going to get?
Right. Anything could happen. It could be fast going down and then get blown in on the way back. And then that stretch, there's a good chance of bivvying out because it's long and you gotta go uphill. So I think, plan on seeing those blue dots stall out. Because I think a fair amount of people are going to have to sleep along that stretch. I think that's going to be really hard for people too. I think you're going to see a number of folks blow up, especially if the trail stays soft on the way back up. But then when you get over and past Puntilla Lake, then it's a run. I think if the trail is good, it's going to be a run to the finish. There's that overland route too. That's the other new part right? From Shell Lake to Yentna Station. That's a
Yeah.
new trail. I don't know if you've been on it. I've never been on it.
I did. I have been over on that part during the Iditarod during Billy's race, and I was kind of thinking, I was like, oh, how does this route compare in terms of like, not so much not physical difficulty, but like how does it compare like from like a desolation aspect? Because I always feel like I tell people, I'm like, oh, when you go up the Yentna River, I was like, there's houses, there's lights, like you're gonna see stuff all the time, right? And then, but I said when you get over and you get out of, when you leave Puntilla and go to cross over the pass, I said you're really on your own, and you've committed to being on your own for possibly days, and I think depending on, it's always dependent on conditions, right? It's like I was like, oh, that's a fair. To me, it seems like a fair comparison to, the Rhone to Nicolai run, which is always, that's really the tough one. It's like you're going to spend some time being really cold. You're going to spend a lot of time by yourself, possibly. Like, there's not as much snow machine daily traffic on that route for sure. So that's what I was thinking. I'm pretty excited to see how that plays out. So
It'll be fun too to see racers going down as like you're coming up and racers, you can swap stories, and hopefully the trail will get better, right? For people who are in kind of front group, they're putting in the trail or packing it down on the way to Rhone, and then they turn around and come back, and it hopefully more people come and help pack the trail in.
Yeah, that's what you hope for.
Yeah.
I hope it works out that way. We had me and Kurt had a really and Tyson had a really interesting. Tyson was a little ahead of us, but last year when we left Puntilla, Nicholas Carmen, who was about he was like a week ahead of us. Like he left a week before we did, and he volunteered at Nicolai at the checkpoint, and so he rode his bike out there, of course, and we could see his tire tracks. Like it had been so windy for that entire week since he rode through the pass. We could see his tire tracks still. It was so windy. And I was like, oh man, like nothing like getting beat up by wind for, a long time, for hours and hours. But it's all part of the fun. It's one of those things I remember, and I'm just like, oh, it's like you could just plain as day see his trail. And it just blown over so hard that it was.
That's incredible that you could still see him after a week.
Yeah, it was pretty trippy. I mean, because I've also been there where it's like the trail disappears and the guy's 30 minutes in front of you, but you don't even know where that person went. So that's pretty cool. That's wild.
Yeah,
that's rad. Well, I think I speak for all of us, Chris. We are all really excited for you. Like. I know I am. Like I know I'm really excited to watch the event this year and see how you guys do. I have a few friends doing the event, so I'm really excited for all of them. Did you have anybody you wanted to thank or give a shout out to, or like what?
Yeah, of course. I have to thank Maura and the boys for letting me get away on lots of long weekend rides this week that I'm gone, or however long I'm gone. This is probably going to be the time that the boiler breaks, the well pump goes out, right? The dishwasher blows up. so thanks ahead for dealing with all that. And thanks to the Revolution Racing team, the best team I've ever been a part of. It's all about helping each other and support. So thanks for all that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always just really excited to see my friends do well. Like, so like, I'm just really stoked for you. I'm like, oh man, like, it's so fun out there. I'm just glad you get to go out and check it out and have fun and partake in something like this. It's such a, it's just such a great feeling. It's really cool. So, and so how, like, do you have anything, I guess this is another quick question I was wondering. So like it's been, a long enough time, like some of the gear and everything has changed. Like, what do you think, like, what's the best thing in the last 10 years for something like this? What do you feel like the best piece of gear or bike or whatever? What do you think has made it different and in a much better way?
Maybe two things. I mean, the bike's gotten a lot better. When I did it before, the fattest fat bike tires were endomorphs on 26-inch rims. And that was great, right? But the extra flotation we have now makes the difference between pushing your bike and riding it.
Yeah.
So that's been a good one. A lot of the other gear, it's all, I mean, there's been some, down sleeping bags are still down sleeping bags, right? You can still get super lightweight clothing. And so that there's been a lot of new products, but I don't know that it's been revolutionary in 10 years, just like minor changes. I'd say one thing that's changed, and this is bigger than the ITI, but amongst like the ultra endurance community, the people have gotten a lot nicer and friendlier.
I've heard that. Yeah, I mean, it's really, I know, like, I didn't have, I have some friends that I can pull knowledge from that are willing to share it. But there was definitely, I think, a while there where it was kind of like these crusty old Alaskans who didn't want to share any information. And, that's Alaska, though. That's kind of one of the charms of Alaska is that, right? Like, you had to earn it. You still got to earn it. It's just you don't have to earn all of it. Like, you can give a little bit. Like, I don't want anybody to like lose fingers or like, you should get cold. You should learn what it's like to be cold, but you don't need to lose 2 or 3 fingers and toes. Like, I don't want to see anybody have that happen. So, yeah, there's definitely it's a really nice. Like, we have a Facebook group, right? Like an ITI Facebook group where there's actually a lot of kind of sharing, and like there was even sharing of like what people's routes were going to be. And I was caught off guard by that. I was like, oh wow.
Yeah, that was really cool because this year, we go from Kinnick to a new checkpoint.
Correct. Yeah.
And then we have to get to the Yentna, and it's a spider web of trails, throughout that area. And like Lars and James Howry and Matt Tanaka were posting all these options.
Yeah.
And that was awesome because me and other people would go out, we'd see the routes. They would send out the GPS tracks, and then we'd all go try it in different days with different conditions, and then we would compare notes. And so I think all of us had kind of landed on like 1 or 2 routes, a bike route and a ski route, to get to the Yentna River. But with the weather right now, who knows? Like, it's all up in the air.
It's funny you mentioned that. It's always, I've learned to let the weather be less. I think it's because I know what gear I need for various stuff. So like the weather, I'm just like, well, it's going to be whatever. I've had it, be exact opposite of what I think it's going to be. I've had it be exactly what I think it's going to be, and everything in between. And I'm just like, oh, it's going to be whatever it is. Like, I'm just really, enjoy the parts you can enjoy and get through the stuff that's tough. It's kind of the way that I always think of it. So sometimes the weather always plays its game. It's a natural game, right? So, But it sounds like I heard it sounds like Big Lakes they've gone out and recently groomed all the trails, so there'll be something underneath the snow.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, cool. Well, like I said, we're all really excited for you, and we look forward to following your dot.
Thanks, Clint.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna stop the recording now.
Sounds good.